You talked earlier about the value of having people around you to help you make decisions. I know that as leaders, we've had this experience where you've got an incredible team, you've got a sounding board, and yet you can still feel all alone in the middle of a crowd. And the second guessing of, are the people that I'm asking for feedback telling me this because they really think it's the right move? Is it because they know that I already like it and they're biased towards telling the boss what they want to hear? You have these biases of all swimming in the same fish tank. And you mentioned earlier the value of Reggie Campbell asking you that question and pulling that thread. That's a really healthy example of when it works. But sometimes you can get this dysfunction where people aren't being fully transparent and they don't feel safe to share what we call around here the last 10% of truth and really get it all out there because it may cost them something. It may cost them their job, may cost them their reputation. As leaders, how can we create environments and put the team in places where they feel like it's safe and it's expected to tell us what they really need to say to help us make good decisions, even if it's uncomfortable?
It's so important. Again, there's so much on this topic. Because you're talking about creating a culture that's safe, a culture where you can have emotionally charged, honest conversations, where you can raise your voice and yet go have lunch afterwards and it doesn't jeopardize the relationship. It's a culture. And the leader shapes the culture, right? And the leader sets the tone. So my transparency is important. But here's the other thing that's important. There's a sense in which symbolic leadership is another topic for another day. The symbolic leadership is when you do that thing one time for one person and you hope everybody else finds out about it, not so you get credit, but so they realize, oh, so that's what Andy does when that happens. Oh, so that's how Andy responds when that happens. So we have to realize that every single response we have, whether it's the look on our face, the tone of our voice, it communicates whether or not this is a safe place. So hopefully over time, leaders have created a pattern or a consistency. So even for the insecure person who's not so sure, or the person who's new to the organization, when they hear the story of the organization, the history of the organization, there's just going to be a sense of greater freedom. And the other thing a leader can do, a leader can talk about this. And so, for me, I have to apologize a good bit because I know I can respond quickly. I'm very opinionated about certain things, but I try to be so quick to apologize because when I apologize, I guarantee you when I apologize to a staff member, they tell another staff member, Andy apologized. So this is symbolic leadership. It's kind of do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And it's do for one what you wish everyone in the organization would do for everyone. So there's a humility factor. There's a transparency factor. There's a follow-up factor. And then I think putting words around what we're talking about, which is we don't just want this to be a safe place. This is a safe place. Every once in a while, a staff member will do something that's kind of a real screw up. It's always an accident. It's not on purpose. And they'll make the comment, they'll say, I just hope I still have a job. And they're kind of kidding. And it bugs me. And it bugs me because I think, okay, is there even one example in this organization of somebody who made a mistake and lost their job over a mistake? And to my knowledge, there's not any examples of that. You don't fire people for making mistakes, or none of us would have a job. So again, it's talking about it, it's modeling it, and it's being honest, and it's listening. And it's when your administrative assistant says, Andy, can I talk to you about something for a minute? And immediately this is not going to be good. She's not going to tell me what a great sermon I preach, or when a staff member says, I need to talk, and you're thinking, here it comes. And you think, okay, do not be defensive. Do not cross your arms. Do the Bob Goff thing where you open your hands under the table. I'm not going to be defensive. I'm going to listen, because as a leader, for me, I want to have a great organization. And the only way to have a great organization is to have, information is currency, trust is currency, and there needs to be a free flow of information. That's only going to happen if we have the currency of trust. And so I have to set that tone. And I'm always the elephant in the room in terms of, what does Andy think? And many of your viewers and listeners, they play that role in their organization. So we have to lead the way, and we have to be extra graceful if we want to create a culture of grace.
Obviously, decision making is so important for leaders everywhere, and it's not something that you can delegate decisions on certain things. Some things as the leader, you've got to make the call. And I've seen this where in growing organizations, a leader will get to a point where there's a key decision that needs to be made, and they don't feel like they have the technical competency, yet they still have the leadership responsibility. And you have to rely on the expertise of other people. And I mean, my goal is to be the dumbest guy in the room, right? But it can feel awkward for a season where you're going, how do I still make great decisions? And it's my name on the line, yet I don't have all the details. They have the details, and I'm trusting them that they've covered off on all the details. And that tension that leaders feel about a growing organization when they still have to make decisions, but they're no longer the best person or the expert. How do you deal with that?
Well, again, big topic. The goal in leadership is not to make all the decisions. It's just to make sure all the decisions are the best decisions that can be made. And it's to own them. And ultimately, in a great culture, a leader makes as few decisions as possible. I mean, you could ask people who report to me, they commonly get a response that says, it's a 2-word response: you decide. You decide, you decide. It's like, Andy, you know what? And it's to your point, Daniel, I'm like, okay, this is your area of expertise. It's not make or break. The organization isn't going to go down over whether we get this right. But it'd be like asking me a plumbing question. I don't know. This is just not my area. So you decide. So make as few decisions as possible. And when a leader makes as few decisions as possible, guess what the leader learns? They learn who the good decision makers are in their organization. If you make all the decisions, you don't learn anything about the decision-making IQ or EQ of the people that report to you. But you just shove the decisions back down the chain. And again, it's a do for one. It's a modeling thing. I want everybody in an organization to make as few decisions as they have to make, and let the people who are actually, to your point, experts in that area make the decisions. At the same time, when the decision is made, I own it. I take responsibility for it because ultimately, as the point leader, I'm responsible. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way. Push the decision down to the people, not down, but over to the people who have expertise. But then you back them up, and if there's a problem, you stand up and you take responsibility for the decision. So it's a habit, and and again, for the leader who feels like, because I'm the leader, part of the responsibility of the leader is to make all the decisions. That is incorrect. In fact, that is bad leadership. You become, to use the John Maxwell term, you become the lid in the organization because, to your point, Daniel, you feel like you have to be the smartest person in the room. And I love that Jim Collins quote. I heard him, he's written it, but the way I heard him say it in a lecture one time is, aspire to be the dumbest person in the room. Aspire to be the dumbest person in the room. It's so good, and it's so true. And you're going to, better decisions are going to be.
I'm proud to say I'm getting dumber every day. So that's progress. Yeah.